afternoon, everyone. This is JaVonni Brustow. I am on the PopGlitz Podcast. I do multiple shows. I had to think for a second. And I'm here today with our guest, Anthony Anderson, with the Anacostia, this series, which is modeled after one of my favorite neighborhoods. Mr. Anderson, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so, just as we were saying in the pre-show, Anacostia, when you started the show back in 2009, the neighborhood didn't necessarily have the best rep at the time. And so, with that being said, just for one, I would like to know what was going through your head when you were thinking of branding it after that neighborhood, and just what were some of the thoughts of your peers for deciding to do so?
Well, first of all, you're right. It wasn't it's never had the greatest reputation of all of the DC neighborhoods. But when I developed the show in 2009, I was I was trying to figure out something that was going to be catchy, but also that was going to be intriguing at the same time. And I remember I was going to visit some friends. I wasn't driving at the time, so I was on the subway station. I was on the Green Line, and it had been weighing on me the entire time. Like, what am I going to call this show? What am I going to call this show? And as I'm thinking that, the operator comes over the loudspeaker and she says, "Next stop, Anacostia." I was like, hmm. I said, hmm. I was like, yeah, I'm from Anacostia. Why can't I name it Anacostia? And then what really sold it for me was, it's one thing for you to think about a name. It's something completely different when you see it in
Right.
writing. And so as I was thinking, yeah, that's a good name. And then as I looked up on the display of the name of the station, it said Anacostia right across it. And I said, that's it. That's the name of the show, Anacostia. And so naming it that, of course, when the show first, when we started doing marketing for the show, people did have the wrong connotation. They thought that the show was going to be about, the more not flattering side of Anacostia. They
Right.
thought it was going to be about drugs and guns and violence and stuff like that.
I
And
can
so
imagine.
we had to get over that hurdle even before the show came out, that people already had a preconceived notion of what the show was going to be. And so once they saw the first couple of episodes, then they realized that the show isn't about the neighborhood per se, that everything that you think about the neighborhood has been incorporated in the characters of the show.
Right. And so one little elephant in the room that was inside of that was on the show was the topic of Marion Barry, um, who came up, quite a few times. There were a couple stalking jokes in there.
A couple of digs,
Um,
couple of digs.
yes, it's only fair, But so I wanted to mention that there's a difference in having a native tell a Marion Barry joke
Right.
in someone else. Right. And so, being someone who's, from that neighborhood, could you try and help explain to the people out there just some of the love that people have for Marion Barry? Because to this day, a lot of people don't understand. It was something that, I had to come to witness
Listen,
firsthand, but let the people know
listen.
what your
Marion
experience is.
Marion Barry is the to DC residents is the equivalent of President Obama, Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, every Black person that you think of that is great. He is the equivalent of that for DC residents. And it is because, no matter, for all of his faults and trials and tribulations, he kept he kept the DC residents' well-being first. He wanted to make sure that the DC residents were always taken care of. And this is even from the time that I was like younger. I mean, he's known as the forever mayor. No disrespect to
Hmm.
Mayor Bowser, but
Right.
he's known as the forever mayor, even in now that he's no longer like among us. And for me personally, I got my first working experience through the DC Summer Youth Employment Program through his office through the office of the mayor. At 14 years old, I was making at 14, I was getting paid every Friday $124.35 every Friday.
Oh my
And
God, you remember the
yeah,
exact
yeah,
amount.
yeah. And for a 14-year-old,
Yeah.
14-year-old, like making $124.35, that's a big deal, and making that every Friday. And through that program, I learned how to do applications. It taught you socializing skills, like outside of your neighborhood, because we had to work someplace else. And it was really my
Very
first.
important.
Yeah, like for any DC teen from 14 to I think 21, it was it was a rite of passage every summer. Like every summer, you looked forward to getting your summer job, and you had to go down and get it. You had to go down when it first opened, because that's when the good jobs were available. If you waited 3 weeks later, you was doing something you didn't want to be doing. But so like I have a lot of respect for him. So when I started writing the show, I felt that, look, you can love somebody, but you can also call them on their shit sometime too.
Right.
So during the time that we were filming, there were a lot of things that were going on with him that were unnecessary.
2009.
Yeah,
I remember now.
That were going
on. Current jokes, now that I think about it. It was literally happening that moment.
Yes, and
good.
because we were filming literally in that moment as it was happening. And so I just felt like, oh, come on now, you have to know better than come on, you have to know better than, like you're
makes it that much more funny now while thinking about it.
It's like you're the former mayor, and I think we had a thing about the woman was on the news saying that Marion Barry was stalking her. So we had a character say, told the character, like, what are you doing? Like, so you're following me around like Marion Barry?
She happens to be one of my favorite people, but yes. And yes, does she get these? You're history, ma'am, of course.
So yeah, but it's all love. What was funny was prior to him, what was funny was prior to him passing, I'll never forget, I was at an event in Southeast, and him and Vincent Gray were there together, and someone introduced me to Marion Barry, and he said, why do I know that name? And I was like, oh, there's another actor by the name. He was like, no, you have a show? And I was like, oh, yeah. And he was like, yeah. And he called some young lady over. That was an assistant, called her over, and he was like, what was you telling me a couple of months ago about somebody making fun of me? And so she was the name of the show, and she was like, oh, that's him. I was like,
now he was a smart man, and he did pay attention to that type of stuff.
Yeah,
he absolutely did.
Yeah, so but like he's the forever mayor. Like for all of his faults, he did a lot for the youth and the residents of DC, and that's why they hold him to such esteem to this day.
Yeah. And I'll say that, just in my experience, I think it was during the 2012 election, his last election campaign, basically for talking smack. I received a call from someone in his campaign on social media, and I was, around in the ward, speaking to people and things of that nature. And so they offered me to take a tour of the ward with him in the campaign, and he showed me literally everything that he had done, around the ward. And I was, of course, very impressed. And most importantly, to see people running to the car, to shake his hand. Oh, that's Marion Barry. And when we had first met, I think I went to a campaign re-election event, and people were jumping up and down in the audience shouting hallelujah. And literally the first thing I'm thinking, I said, I wonder if this is staged. Are there paid people in here? And then I'm thinking, being younger, And I was like, wait a minute, you know what this guy's finances are? Absolutely not. No
They
one's that pressed. And, of course, going over history, I mean, people absolutely love him. And for just cause, he's done quite a bit going back to, the 70s from,
yes,
getting the kids work, getting the adults work.
yes, and like, but also having that DC attitude, like when he was confronted on the, I think I will never forget. He was the mayor at the time, and he was leaving a downtown building, and the news channel 9 was covering him, and some woman walked up to him in a candid moment and said, Marion Barry, I have 14 kids, and I'm not making enough money. What are you going to do about it? He said, well, you should stop having kids. And I was like,
A lot of people remember that moment too.
I said, he's not lying. Well, he didn't lie. It's like, if you can't afford them, stop having them. So that's what people loved about him. He was so candid.
And I mean, he was a genius in the fact that he was a fun guy. Sometimes a little bit too fun.
He loved the ladies. So ladies were his weakness. Well, that and that among other things. But but we all have our vices.
This is true. You're a decade into the show. What do you credit the success that you've been able to make it this far for so long?
That's a great question. I think first and foremost, God, because I credit everything to God. Because let me tell you, there were times that we didn't even know if we could do this show. I mean, just because of like lack of finances or whatever. But somehow God has always made a way for us to make a season and to constantly elevate the season each time out. But I think we also have a very great group of loyal viewers that have been with us for the last 10, 11 years that are on the edge of their seats, like waiting for news of the new season or news of the new episodes to come through. And I feel like the characters that I've crafted, I feel like they're tangible, like people like the characters in the show, like they're in your family, they're friends of yours. And I think when you have a show that you can identify with the characters and they're relatable, you sort of root for them when you want them to succeed. And the ones that are doing not so great things, you're hoping that someone catches them and they get caught. So I think that's been the mainstay of the longevity of the show, because I know right now there are only maybe one or two shows that I could think of that when we came out that are still around today.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, were these DC area shows, or were you saying shows?
No, they're based out of Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like we've been around the block, but what I really enjoy is seeing content creators of color running into them, or them coming into the inbox and saying, hey, I want to thank you for creating your show, because when I saw your show, I knew it was possible for me to do mine. And that's the biggest that's the biggest pat on the back that anyone can get, that you inspired someone to do their own show, because I was inspired to do mine. So anytime I can use that this show is used to facilitate someone else living their dreams, that's a great thing to me personally.
It is. And I love the fact that, as the neighborhood changes, and, we know that it is, the fact that you're able to still have some type of Black culture that's still being expressed in the media, this many years later, because, too often, as is the case with these neighborhoods, with U Street, etc., we see a demographic change, and the same happens to go with the culture.
Right.
The culture's out as well, and so you still have, this narrative where you have some of the natives and the originals who are still out walking around, And so I think that that's probably some good karma of yours.
Yeah, and I think someone from the neighborhood actually, like a couple of months ago, they sent us a message and they said, I was watching your show. I was watching some of the older episodes of your show. And do you know that your show is the only, has the only video that they could think of that has that has the old bridge from 11th Street that
Oh,
to two that
yes.
295, like which is
Right.
not like which is no longer there anymore. And they said that when they saw that, it sort of took them back in time to when they were kids walking on that street and seeing
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
seeing that bridge. So I started thinking, and I look back at some of the episodes. I'm like, yeah, that's not there anymore. Like Big K Liquor Store is now an is now a condo complex.
Which one
So
was that you mentioned?
Big K Liquor Store that's on the corner of
Oh, yes. Right. Yes. And
right.
I think there's supposed to be a Starbucks in there, I think.
Oh no, there is a Starbucks in there. I've been there a couple of
Yeah.
times.
I remember when that talk about going back. I had an ex who told me that he said that I was like an old man. Every time I would go out somewhere with him in the city, he's like, this wasn't here 5 years ago. That was a hole in the ground. This
Yeah.
um
The
I remember they
crazy
were
thing.
planning. I think they did protest the Starbucks.
Oh yes, they
I
did.
can
But
recall.
it's alive and open. But I actually grew up right where that Starbucks is, right where Maple View Flats is. There is a community right across the street. I think there's a Whitman Walker clinic that's on the corner, and there's an alley right next to Whitman Walker, and then there's a row of homes that's right there. I think the street is called Chicago Street. And I actually grew up in that very first house that's right next to the Whitman Walker Clinic. Like it's 1137 Chicago Street. So I actually grew up right there from the time I was a baby until I think 9 or 10. And then we moved to Brandywine Street in Southeast. And then my last destination was Stanton Road, which was what we were talking about the other day, the old Ambassador Square apartments over there off of Stanton and what's that? Pomeroy Road? Yeah.
Yeah, I specifically remember it was 2400 Stanton Road, I believe. And just in doing research, I said that I've never heard of Ambassador Square Apartments. And I'm a research junkie. I feel like I know the neighborhood pretty good. And I literally asked around to everyone. I said, why is there like nothing on there? But in my research, I happened to find out a connection to down here. I literally spent like a whole afternoon on this. I found out that my former congressman's dad was a slumlord in the city, managing that managing that property. So yeah, that was fun. I was able to learn a little bit of history. But in talking
Yeah.
about this good
Yeah.
karma of yours,
Now that neighborhood was something.
yes. But in talking about this, good karma and the fact that you were able to keep some of the uh, character or cultural character or cultural integrity rather to the old DC and still having some blacks in the series.
Mhm.
I think that you had alluded to this with the Salt and Pepper documentary that just came out, where you were talking about karma, and
Yeah.
yeah, you specifically said that because of how they treated
Cinderella.
Cinderella, that they would everything they look at is going to fail until they do right by her.
Yeah. It's that old Color Purple line. It's like
Hmm.
you listen, when
But
you
that is
work with
really how I feel about how you are keeping the integrity of old DC in your show.
yeah,
It's I think I really feel like it's thriving specifically because you've not turned your back on the community.
no, it's like, and I think that like a lot of people wanted us to do a lot of people wrote in and said that why don't you guys cover this or I actually there was a Caucasian content creator in LA, And I will never forget that he said to me, he said, with your show, do you realize with your show, with the content in your show, do you realize how much further you would be if you would change all of your characters to white characters? And I was like, well, why would I do that? It was like, why would I do that? It's like, well, because like you like they really don't know how
I
to
knew it.
deal they really don't know how to deal with a soap that's dealing with Black people. And I was like, well, that's not my problem. That's not my problem. I'm not going to change what I want to do to fit the mold that makes you comfortable,
Right.
or that gets us more, or that gets us more like attention. Like, I want these characters to represent what I did not see when I grew up watching soap operas. I wondered where the Black people were, and I wondered why in the 1980s was. I wonder why Mamie was still a maid in the Abbott household on Young and the Restless. Like, it's the 1980s. Why do y'all still have a maid? But and then when you bring the Black characters on to the show, oftentimes they are the product of a biracial relationship that the white man had sex with the Black woman,
Right.
and forgot about her and left her pregnant, and the child comes back angry and upset, or the child has some type of street problem that they can't read, or they have an attitude. Like, I'll never forget when Victoria Rao came on to the Young and the Restless. She was like, "Oh, what you talking about? What y'all talking about?" Like, no,
Right. Yeah.
not all of us. Like, not all of
They're
us do that.
caricatures.
So it was important for me to develop characters that not only spoke to the Black experience. And when I say the Black experience, I'm not talking about just the pretty nice things. I wanted to have a character who was very beautiful on the outside, but had a drug problem. I wanted to have a female character who was a hell of a businesswoman, great wife, but because she did not deal with the issues from her past, had developed an alcohol problem. I wanted to have a character who over the course of years had gained weight and was very comfortable in her body image, but she had a husband who treated her like shit. And it happens. And most of all, I want to have a gay character in the show that his homosexuality was not the center point of who he was. And I think that that's what really gravitated a lot of people to the show. It's like, oh, well, this is like really fresh. And then we started getting white viewers that were drawn in to the storyline, and it had nothing to do with these characters being African American. They were pulled in by the story because the stories were universal.
I mean, and might I add, I mean, very good stories. And look, just what you said about having, a dynamic gay character, it reminds me of, I mean, I'd mentioned this too. I interviewed Mr. A from Love and Hip Hop New York, Hollywood, sorry. And I mentioned that Brandon Deschazar, a friend of Kenya Moore, had written an open letter on Facebook once, talking about how he did not like the idea of having these Black gay men who were accessories, to women on the show. That's just typically what their role is. Of which I was reminded that, that's sort of the role that he signed up for. As a friend of the show. But I do get the gist of what he was saying, that's just, how they are typically pigeonholed. And so,
well, yeah,
as you mentioned this, I mean, it wasn't a centerpiece. Sexuality was not the centerpiece of the main character because, again,
no.
The role was so dynamic.
Yeah, and I think that when we first introduced him, like, it wasn't like, oh, well, by the way, I'm gay. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It was like he was very matter of fact. Well, a couple of months ago, I lost my partner. He fell off a boat and drowned. Blah 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 blah. Then he fell in love. Then he fell in love again with a guy who turned out to be a male prostitute, but
couldn't quite come up with a word for what that whole situation was. He was a few things.
So he fell in love with a guy who turned out to be a male prostitute that was hired to play with his mind. But his story could have been supplanted into any one of the other characters, and it would have played out. It would have played out the same way. It just so happened that his partner in life was another man, and so I'm glad that a lot of our viewers from the LGBTQ community like really gravitated towards the character of Sean. And like you said, I think that when you do the character right, I was very pleased to in 2017 dealing with a rape storyline, once again something that we don't see on traditional TV, a male on male rape situation that led to a letting me be the first African American person of color to be nominated for lead actor in a digital series at the Daytime Emmys. So when you do these characters and you do them the right way, the industry will pay attention to them. It's your peers that you got to worry about, the one that's trying to sabotage your ass.
Right. Yes. So, the nomination was, of course, amazing. As far as the timing, I didn't realize that it was coming from that particular season.
Yeah. So my individual nomination for lead actor came from that rape storyline. We had a few nominations prior that started in season 4. So we were nominated for New Approaches drama series for season 4, and Martha Byrne won her 3rd Emmy for her performance in season 4. And then we had been nominated like every year for something after that, like until we started taking breaks. So yeah, so that's that sucker back there.
Yes. I was going to mention that beautiful cabinet back there. Pay attention.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, like, we've been very fortunate that like our peers have like really gravitated towards us over the last 10 years. But again, it starts with being true to your characters, being true to your storylines. Like, I don't have a problem with the other people that are doing shows. I have an issue when you have a content creator of color who happens to be gay and they do a web show, and the web show is strictly based upon gay men bed hopping to one another. It's like it's no storyline.
I didn't have to say that. Thank you for you saying it.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean,
absolutely.
Let's be honest. I mean, they're like,
that was crossing my mind, and
let's get into
20 episodes I looked at this morning.
Yeah, let's get into your talent. What else can you do? Okay, yeah, you can do a show to where you have a bunch of young gay men jumping in bed and simulating sex and everything else. But what else can you do? Where's the writing? Like, where's the part that's gonna pull me in as a viewer? Where is the art to what it is that you're doing? Because anyone can point a camera and say, oh, well, pretend like you're giving him head, or pretend like the two of you are having sex. But where is the art in what you're doing?
I absolutely agree. And look, for the rape scene, and just for that whole story, I have to say that my first thought in watching that was that, for one, I said, that is amazing acting. Like,
thank you.
The crying, the multiple instances of crying. I said, and my first thought was, I said, that's, again, he's really acting, and that wasn't any Kenya Moore acting either.
No,
those were really good tears. And no shade, she happens to be one of my favorite people to watch on television. But that was what crossed my mind. And then as that first scene had progressed and rape came up, which seemed to have come out of nowhere, I said, "Oh my God!" Now I feel horrible for that joke that just appeared in my head. But no, that was an amazing story. To sit and watch one that was completely unpredictable, and even sitting and looking at how to look at the mindset of the perpetrator and how, they were a fairly mild-mannered average person who just went out and did it for fun. And it was described as going too far.
Right. Thank you.
And with a stranger going too far.
Yeah, it was just like, I got carried. I got carried. I got carried away. I got carried away. But that is the mindset of people who are sociopaths, who we work alongside every day. I mean, God knows what some of our coworkers do, like once they leave the office, like every day. And I'm so grateful that you picked that up, because that was one of the main things that in writing that particular character for him is what I was going for, was that I don't want him to seem like, okay, he's some type of raving lunatic or something. I want him to be completely mild-mannered, completely devoid of what he just did to this guy. He was hired to beat him up, but in the midst of beating him up said, hey, you know what? I'm going to add insult to injury. I'm going to go ahead and rape him. And then when it comes out, he's like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, and I think that really stuck with people like a lot, but I knew what we were doing was special that day that we filmed, like those scenes with me dealing with the realization that my character had been raped, because all that day at work, I kept crying throughout the day at work, and I had to keep telling people, no, I'm fine. Like throughout the entire day. And I remember getting to the set that day, and Walter Maxwell Jones was there, and he said, what's wrong? Why are your eyes red? I was like, I've been crying all day long. And he said, you've been prepping for this scene, haven't you? I was like, yeah. It's like I can't shake it. Like I couldn't shake it. And once we did all the makeup and stuff like that, and they said action, like I just let it all, like everything that I've been holding for that day just sort of came out. But strange thing about that scene, right, is we had to do it twice. So we had to do it twice on two completely different days. They do it twice on two completely different days because the second part of that, where Selena comes to console him, it wasn't Selena. So it was somebody else. And in looking at it in editing, we felt like the scene didn't have the like emotional impact that we wanted. And we tried to figure out, well, why is it not having the emotional impact? And I was like, let's try this with somebody else. Let's try this with another actress. And so we brought in Milan Perez, who plays Selena. And we had to look back at the footage. The makeup person was pissed. She was like, oh my God, I got to reapply the makeup. I was like, yeah. I was like, well, you got to reapply the makeup, but I got to find that emotion where I was again. So when you see it, that second part of that was the second, like 2 weeks later. So I had to take pictures to my barber and say, I need you to cut my hair like this. And so
that was a lot.
It was a lot. Like it was a lot, but thank you for even like recognizing the work that went into that.
Absolutely. I mean, that it's it cannot be overstated. That was just really amazing to watch. That one caught me off guard. And you know who my favorite character happens to be?
Who?
This is who I would say is quintessential DC, and I'll preface this by saying that I am a fan of the underdog, and this would be the neighbor that no one liked.
I already know who you're talking
about. I would best describe as having the Taraji P. Henson accent. Love her.
Deanna.
Yes.
Deanna, yes.
Absolutely love her.
Yes, Tia Day. And I remember Tia Day was a singer, and I remember her.
You know how upset I was it's seeing her being killed in the beginning, well, allegedly killed.
And then
A
she
lot of
came
people
back.
allegedly. Yes, we're going past it. At one point, I said, "Yeah, I'm sick of this. Like, this
Well,
is just
look,
not fair. This is just, this isn't right. You're like, you're toying with me here. Either
look,
they're dead or they're
look, there is a saying in soap opera that unless you see them in the casket, they are never
not. Right. Thank
unless
you.
you see them in the casket. When
Gotta
someone goes
remember
over
that.
when someone goes over a cliff and oh well we can't find the body, oh you just know that they're coming back.
Right.
But I one of my favorite moments with her was I remember when she did her audition, and we were in this long room, and there was like a catwalk to from the door to where we were sitting at the table. And I remember she came in, and I had known her previously as a singer, and she came in, these tight pursuicos on, these high heel shoes, all this gaudy jewelry. She had she had this little asymmetric wig on, and she had these bangle bracelets that was making all this noise while she was walking down the catwalk. And the way she had a lollipop in her hand, and she just stood, and she stood there was like, yeah, so when do y'all want me to start? And I was just looking, and she read the line, and I hired her that day. I hired her that day. I told all the other actresses, everyone that came here for Deanna, you guys can read for somebody else, but I think I already found her. Yeah, so a lot of people love her. She's a nutball. I mean, she's a nutball in real life. So it just comes off in that character. But a lot of people love her.
Absolutely. And and I would have to say that, she's someone that I would probably say that I'm polar opposite with, which is exactly why I absolutely love her as a character. I tell people that I for most of my time in DC, I worked like around Connecticut Avenue, K Street area. Lived behind a gate. But and I remember there was a particular time where I was not a fan of Taraji Henson because of her accent. And I have come to absolutely
love that accent.
Absolutely love the woman for it. For being herself. And I've got to mention, it just occurred to me this morning that her line of, every time she got into an argument with someone, she would say, show your
all her. Like I really let her have liberty with that line. Like there.
You know where I heard that from?
Where?
Just to mention, it occurred to me that my now deceased mother used to use that quite a bit. Maybe that's why I like that line. Who grew up in DC? Yes.
There have been plenty of times that we have been on set and we completely messed up a take of hers because just her line delivery, her facial expressions, like I had to do, so sometimes I had to do scenes with her, but I had to have her stand to the side, like away from me.
To look at her.
So I can look at her. So it's like a lot of times. So when you see me from her point of view, but you don't see her shoulder, it's because I couldn't do it while she's in front of me, because she would always be in character and be giving me these looks. So I would have her stand to the side. I was like, girl, just read your lines from over there somewhere. But she is a character. One of the favorite people that I love working with, her and Pasha Diallo, who plays Dominique, who plays the pimp, and Marion Acton.
Love that character.
Yeah, Marion Acton, who plays Nancy, everybody's favorite neighborhood man stealer, being kind, are some of my favorite characters to have scenes with.
And Miss Pimp is from Baltimore, isn't she?
She is. How did you know that?
You're being funny. Yes.
Her accent, yeah.
Love it. There's a meme going around of the guys here, and the woman's like, "Oh, you're from Baltimore, say too," and he walks away. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I heard that. I said, yes, he's got some Baltimore flavor in the show.
Yeah, she Pasha Diallo, She's one of the people that's been there from the beginning, along with Will Lash from I Love New York.
I was going to mention that sidebar. In watching this, and of course it's years ago, but in looking again, I said, I know this guy from somewhere. I don't know where. I'm going to figure it out. I found his Instagram and started scrolling. I'm a blogger, so I tend to do this trolling. And I'm scrolling and scrolling. I said, I want to figure out where I know this guy from. And I said, oh, I Love New York. How did I not know this?
Onyx from I Love New York.
A former contestant to be the most eligible bachelor in DC at one point as well.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, you've done your research. Yeah, he's actually. I actually met him when he came off of the show, and I would have to say, there are certain people that you meet that you just you meet in your life, and they never change on you. Like the way you met them have been the same way, consistently. And that brother right there has been nothing but consistent. Like he's been a solid person. He's a bit of a practical joker on set. And he likes to be innocent, but he's not. So it's like once we're out of town,
to have around.
Yeah, like once we're out of town, he's the one that gets everybody in trouble. So that's the one. But yeah, so I love working with them.
And so with the show being in DC, DC is no New York or LA. I don't have to tell you that. Mm-hmm. And so of course I know that there's some type of, or at one point in time there were some casting challenges likely with that, among other things, since most talent happens to be squared in both of those cities. But with that being said, given who you have on this show, it would be hard to tell that. I would know you've got a number of models who've been on, some bodybuilders, a very good looking cast, I might add.
Yeah. Well, when you're casting a soap opera, you have to make sure that everyone is like, someone said that you cast the guys like Tyler Perry cast the guys on his shows. I'm like, yeah, but they can act on my show. but mine
didn't
can
want
act.
To make that comparison, but yes, that is true. Okay.
Yeah, but mine can act. But no diss to Tyler Perry. I have nothing but respect. I have nothing but respect.
Likewise.
But I think that. But what I love seeing is that sometimes you work with people and they say, well, I feel it's time to go to LA, to go to greener pastures, and you wish them, and you wish them well, and you just make changes in the show to accommodate them either being gone, or you bring in another person to play that particular character. I think that I absolutely love doing the show because I feel as though it fills a void in mainstream television, seeing people of color in dynamic situations with which what I feel is great storylines, great writing. I think what we have coming up this year is going to completely supersede anything that we've ever tried to do previously. And that's just with the growth of not only the actors, but with myself as a writer as well. And so I'm looking forward to getting back on set. We were due to go back last year, but because of COVID, I didn't want to be one of those productions that sort of put people at jeopardy and said, oh, just for sake of us filming, let's all hope that we're all safe and let's get on the set. And next thing you know, everyone has COVID-19, and I don't ever want that on my conscience. So I told everyone, look, we're going to—
Not a nice headline to be a part of either.
Not at all. And I know some shows that have bent the rules and filmed, and some of their people have come down with COVID, and now they're all panicked, oh my God, I did scenes with that person. And because you're doing a soap opera, you have to be intimate. There's a lot of times that you're intimate with your co-star. And so I just said, listen, we're going to follow the science, and we're going to film later on this summer. It's not much to film. And I think when people see what we're filming, I think when they see the new episodes, especially our season finale for what's planned for the season finale, they're actually going to be completely blown away at the overall production value of that season finale, because it's just going to be sick. It's going to be paying. I'll say it's going to be paying homage to some legends. I'll just say that. Okay. So it's going to be paying homage to some of our legends. And I'm working on this new. I've been working on this new reality show that was formerly titled City Boys. Now it's titled The City DC. Been working on that for years. Got caught up in some deals to bring it to television that turned out to be really bad deals. And so we had to wait until the deal expired so we can go and do our own thing. But now we're ready to show people what we've been working on.
Yeah, I've been curious. I mean, I remember when you made the first review when that was first released. I remember some previous people who were going to be a part of it, and that was literally something that every so often I would randomly look it up, because I do this. There are certain people I have on my mind. I'm wondering what they're doing, and I literally randomly Google people all the time and shows, and that was one of them I'd periodically check on. And I was actually really excited to look recently and to see, that this was, back in the works. And I have to add that when I was looking at this just, I think yesterday, I think at one point wasn't sure whether it was a reality series or not. And given just how heavy some of the topics were, like the person who mentioned that if, X drug was on the floor, he was going to use it. I said, did he really just say that about his own life? Was this pseudo reality? Surely he didn't do that.
No.
I watched it again. I read it and I said, oh, wow, this is really going to be something.
Yeah. And I think that when people see, first of all, I want to say to those individuals that are involved in the show, I thank them for being so completely transparent and honest. And I think that when people saw that, everyone was like, well, is this a scripted show? Or it's like, no, it's not scripted at all.
People are open and
right.
And that people appreciate in seeing that.
Right. And that was one of his
things. It just caught me off guard.
and that was one of the things when he joined the show, he said, I'm going to be very honest, because I'm on the verge of, I'm just coming out of treatment. I think it's important for us to deal with crystal meth in the Black gay community, because when people think about crystal meth, they normally associate it with white gay men, but it's very prevalent in the Black gay community as well. And he said, I have a story to tell. And that particular scene was, the buildup to that was, there have been some speculation that he was not as clean as he was alluding to. And it got to the point where he had to address it. But he wanted them to know, I'm in treatment and that's my drug of choice. And if it was laying on the floor right now, I'm gonna do it. And he's had in full transparency, he's had his good days, and unfortunately he's had his slip ups to where he's had to go back into and now he's out. And then you have our transgender person Monroe, who had her own vices to deal with as far as alcohol. And how she confronted it, and she left the show for close to a year while she was in treatment for a whole year. And then she recently just had gender reassignment. So that's going to be something that's going to be something. Yeah, that's going to be really nice to hear a fresh perspective of it as someone that's just coming out, because a lot of heterosexual people have questions they have, shall I say, functionality questions about that type of surgery.
Right.
And she's like, I'm gonna talk about it.
So to be fair, probably the same for myself. I don't know very many trans people, so I would be one sitting there and to listen for all of the same reasons. So don't exclude us as well.
Yeah, listen, I've had questions that I asked her, and I said, like if you didn't if you're not a woman, well, if you weren't born a woman and you don't know the sensation of having sex, how do you hear like? And she's like, it's what I make it. And I was like, okay.
I mean,
Okay.
Look, it's nice that you had the conversation. It's nice that you were able to have the conversations. You were able to do it in a respectful manner.
Right.
Might I add, I mean, in recent years, and in particular with, discussions about going to the bathroom, which has become some like politicized, ridiculous discussion. Which I look at this and I tell people, and like I do shows and stuff like that. And it occurred to me one day, I said, wait a minute, people have been going to the bathroom like forever. There have been trans people forever. Why is it that this day, and literally people were pinning me in the corner over like a stance on an issue? I'm like, I'm not doing this about going to the bathroom. Like, go away. I mean, and as someone who tends to believe that folks should be able to like carry a gun like anywhere, I mean, yeah, if you have a physical threat inside the bathroom, I think that the response would be fight or shoot it. Other than that, no one is.
What's funny is one of the individuals on the show, Magic, actually said that they wanted you on the show. Like once the show was like really like getting like a lot of buzz and stuff, and like they said, we ought to have him on the show. And I think when I talked about
you is in my name.
Yes. What? And I think I think when we talked about it, you had just moved to Richmond. and you had just moved to Richmond. So that's where that conversation had came up from, was from Magic saying, "Oh, I think he would be great for the show." But
and I'm glad to say that you picked a good group of people. I will say that I think I've only known one person apart who's actually not a part of it because they were in the beginning. But the name is Maya now. I can't think of what her name was before.
Maya.
Yeah.
Maya.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't think of previous name. But yes. And so
John.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The twin. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I hadn't heard that in a while. It took me a minute. But that was the only person. Yes, years. Like that. It's the only person that I knew, and again, just virtually online. But everyone else, just being on social media, I've seen all of these people. So they're all pretty popular folks.
Yeah.
And some of which that I think I've seen for like a decade, probably on the internet. So I'm just saying, you picked a pretty good dynamic and popular group of people that folks I'm sure want to see behind the camera.
Hopefully, like I said earlier, like we had been signed to we signed an attachment agreement with Dubose Entertainment through Flavor Unit Entertainment, which is Queen Latifah's company. We signed with them, and they had us come out to the offices of Flavor Unit and sat down with everyone, sort of laid out the idea of what they wanted the show, what they wanted the show to be, stuff like that, and everything was and we were very excited. But then I guess they even sent Jason Lee from Love and Hip Hop, that they flew him out to DC to because they felt like, okay, you can come to this meeting and tell us anything and try to sell us anything because you're trying to sell us a show. So what you're telling us about these people could be completely false. So we're going to send our own person to DC to sort of like investigate these people. And so they flew Jason Lee out. He was here for that weekend, met with everybody, and he was like, oh no, this show got to be on TV. This show has got to be on TV. This show's got to be on TV. But I think what happens then is people see and smell money. they see and smell money and like, okay, this could be like a gold mine, but who's going to get the lion's share of this gold? And I think then all of a sudden you're in the middle of this. On one hand, you're like, well, these people bought me in and are offering me a deal. But then you have somebody else coming to me in my ear like, well, I can introduce you to Mona Scott, and Mona Scott's in charge of Love and Hip Hop, and why don't you come over here with me? And so they found out about what each other was doing, and they started fighting each other. And they started fighting each other about who would I want to go with. And I was like, well, I signed a deal with one person.
Bidding war.
I was like, I signed a deal with one person, so I'm staying where I'm at. And I think because Jason had a relationship with Queen Latifah, I think Flavor Unit separated from DuBose Entertainment, and because we were signed to DuBose Entertainment through Flavor Unit, they took us with them, and they sat on us. They literally sat on us. They sat on us for months. Like, we kept calling, like, what's going on, like, what's happening, and they were just like, oh, we're going to get to it. And so when people say, well, it's taking a long time for the show to come out, that's one of the reasons why it took a long time for the show to come out, because we couldn't do anything because we were signed to a production deal with people that was in LA, wasn't doing anything. So we set out for like 6 months, 7 months, until the contract ran out, and then we geared back up and started back. So hopefully this new venture that just hit us up yesterday looks promising, but I've learned my lesson on that.
I definitely understand.
Huh?
I definitely understand, and I'm glad to see that that you've got the eyes and ears of those names behind the show. That really says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think they see the need, because when you look at some of these shows like Married to Medicine, Atlanta, and Real Housewives of Atlanta, stuff like that, when you see these women in their interviews and they're sitting down and they're giving these reads, those reads are not natural. Those reads have been supplied to them by their gay friends. Like, that is how gay men like, that's how gay men talk to one another. Like, I'm gonna read you, honey. Like, that's not I mean, that's not normal Black woman speak. That's like, oh, but what's the jargon now? So why can they benefit from the culture of LGBTQ instead of the curators of that culture? Why don't they have a show? And much like you said about Brandon saying, like, using the gay people as accessories to the show, that is what a lot of them have been doing. And you have to question, why haven't there been a show that's dealing with African American gay men or gay men of color? Because they want the women to say what it is that they're saying.
That's absolutely true. But we've been waiting for some time. I'm definitely excited about it. And so this is supposed to be, I think that you have a release date, or a tentative release date, for Memorial Weekend.
Yes. So of course that ties into Black Pride weekend here in DC.
Oh yes, perfect. It couldn't be any better.
Nothing is an accident around here. Nothing is an accident. Nothing. Everything is strategically planned. Trust me.
Absolutely. And just being mindful of time. Time before I go. you did an interview about exactly 10 years ago where I think it was by We Love Soaps, I think. And they asked you if you had received your, I don't know, your honors from the city or recognition from the city of DC at the time. And I can kind of see where this is going. But I was wondering, a decade later, now I do know that you were inside of the MLK parade
Mhm.
a couple years afterwards, which is amazing. That was great. But one, I would like to see that, see that as a regular to have you all in.
Hello, thank you.
I absolutely want to see that. But I take it that that's a no for the recognition part.
I think the only thing that we have gotten so far was under Vincent Gray. But it had more so to do with me being listed as filmmaker of the month for that particular
Okay.
one of those months, and it was like a it's a it's like a it's like a proclamation of like
I
film of
saw
like
that.
yeah of
And
like
that
film
was
of like
about
yeah
2014, I think. It was like right as he
yeah
was headed out of office. And
yes
to his
so
credit, he did really want to hype up Southeast, because that was his side of town. And
yes
so that I will give Mr. Gray credit on. And,
yes
I'll
but
continue to pick on him for other stuff. Just kidding.
now I'm gonna be honest as far as that actually to be completely honest, like I mean we've won an Emmy, we've been nominated for 6 Emmys, we have like three trophy cases of different awards and stuff like that. But I truly feel what would really what would really be the icing on the cake, now that you mentioned that, would be that I feel like we have done a lot for this city. I feel like we have been a positive representation of a part of town that is known for crimes and violence and stuff like that. And I feel like that we have been responsible enough not to placate into that. Um, and
Yeah.
we have people overseas speaking the name of Anacostia. So my mom, so I was born and raised in DC. It would be an incredible honor for me in this show, while my mama is alive, while my mama is alive, to be rewarded or to be recognized by the city in some way, shape, or form. Just completely selfish. Um, so I could stand there with my mom and say to her, all of that hard work and determination and kicking my butt to put me through school paid off. So maybe one day.
Yes. And I'll just say that we talked about this in the pre-show of how, the neighborhood of Anacostia, with this reputation that it took, some residents to have their, pet projects that they were out promoting to try and help to shine the light on the neighborhood and in a more positive light. Again, me being down in Petersburg, we experienced the same thing. I've spoken with the city's communications person. I'm in regular contact with her, other community advocates and whatnot. Because the problem is so that, I'm always I do poach from DC, or attempt to poach, that is, sometimes
Mhm.
businesses and whatnot. And what happens? People Google the city and they're like, what the hell? Absolutely not. And I think at one point, like, there were a couple pitches that I had. One of them, right as I was doing it, we broke a record for shooting. Then we broke another record for something, for some other type of violence or something. And it just happened again. I think that we were on the cover of Time magazine, in a list of cities over shooting. That can't get any worse. And
Not.
we were in the New York Times over being a COVID hotspot just the other day. And I said, you know what? Look, every time this happens, it feels like a dagger in my heart, because you're making my job harder. Like, I specifically, and I interview like all these community people and whatnot. And with me being down here doing that, I'm interviewing new restaurants, and new businesses and things of that nature. I remembered where I came from. I've watched this show for so long, and I said, oh my God, I've got to reach out to Anthony Anderson.
Oh,
That
thank you.
he is literally doing this type of work that if it were not for people like him, the neighborhood, I think, would possibly not come along, quite the same way. I mean, I remember a decade ago how people were complaining about Marion Barry. Like there was the time where I think, what did they did something to his car, broke a window or something, and you remember he was on the news and he said, "Well, that's what happens when you live in the ghetto."
You know what? I sometimes like I'm just gonna be completely selfish here. I think sometimes sometimes I feel like if your name isn't Ron Moten, they really don't care. And it's like
I mean, he had a moment where folks didn't care. He managed to redeem himself. I don't quite know how. I've been on both sides of him. I want to leave him alone.
Yeah, but I think
the work it is appreciated, which is why I just said that I had to sit down to to have a conversation with you. This is beautiful work. I would like to have a Petersburg show.
Hey, do it. Let me tell you what's coming up is going to be what's coming up is so ridiculously good. I actually it's rare that I look back at the scripts that I wrote and like smile and pat myself on the back. It's like I
love your early work. I've seen what you've said about it, how some of it was cringeworthy. I love it.
Well, see, it's cringeworthy because we started in 2009 when everything was shot on mini DV. So it wasn't like we weren't at the HD level yet. And
we have all the we got all the BlackBerry nostalgia from back then.
Look, I mean,
I got to hear that loud texting.
It's good. Look, it's good for a it's good for a throwback. But I will tell you, everyone on the show knows that next year we're refilming the entire first 3 seasons. Like we're completely refilming those 3 seasons because I love those seasons, and for some reason, every time we get invited to something, or like we're being recognized as something, somebody wants to use scenes from like, why can't you start with season 4? They're like, no, we want to use the scene where Dominique slaps the woman down and tell her that he's buying pussy from you. It's not rocket science. But that was shot.
I thought about that when I made that meme this morning. I said, I know this early work of his, what he's thinking. I said, you are doing a cringe-worthy act, JaVonni. And I was up and I was like, ha, I want to do it anyway. It was still hilarious.
It's like I think that there's a saying in the Bible, never despise humble beginnings. So it got us to where we needed to be. And so I can't hate on it. I'm just going to refilm it. That's all I'm going to do.
I understand. Look, I saw that you said that you do an episode a day. So it shouldn't take you too long to knock it out.
No. Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be it's definitely going to be a chore. But everyone's like, yeah, especially Marion Akpan. She's like, I've lost so much weight since then. I like to shoot some of those things over.
Like nice incentive. Understood.
But I want to thank you. I think this is we've known each other for like a minute, like I think social media wise and stuff like that and stuff. But I want to thank you for inviting me to do this because it does, trust me, it does mean a lot. Like it means a lot to whenever I get a chance to talk about the show and what I'm working on. And it is because of people like you that have kept not only my show, but things that some of us that don't get I don't want to say mainstream, but like the standard media coverage. Because after all that we've done, we have still yet to be featured in any of the soap opera magazines. I mean, they've talked to our Caucasian guest stars, but they've yet talked to myself or any of the actors on the show. So it is because of media like yourself that even if you're like through this, the show gets exposed to someone that may not have even known about the show, that's going to go and maybe look at it and enjoy it and binge watch it and maybe tell someone else about it. And I think that's how the show keeps going. People,
I talk about you all.
Thank
The types of positive neighborhood representation and whatnot that we need to have down here. Like, I really spend a significant amount of my time on my city, and I do comparisons to other places to include, Chicago and Detroit for others who are doing similar things. And so it was part of the reason why I decided to start going out with a camera myself. I think that someone I worked with said that he wanted to start doing interviews, and I said, that I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of being on camera, because if you've noticed, you've not really seen too much of me doing this until the last year or so. But at the end of the day, when no one else will, we step in to do.
That's right. And next year, I actually just bought a treadmill, because God knows I'm not going into anybody's gym during COVID.
Oh yes,
during COVID.
In your new house, by the way, which congratulations.
Thank you thank you so very much. It's only been 6 months now that we've been that we moved here. We got a shitload of snow the other day, so it's
a very good accomplishment in the DC area.
Thank you.
That I can say I do market comparison analysis all the time. I see those ridiculous numbers up there. So
thank you. Well, next year I am making it a point. Next year with my treadmill, I'm going to be featured as the eye candy on the PopGlitz site. That's what I'm going to be.
All right. Hey, I'm trying to work out so I can do the same thing. We both have the same goal, all right?
That's gonna be my goal for next summer. I'm gonna be the eye candy of the day with my Speedo.
We'll both get here at the same time. I might forgo the Speedo.
Hey, look, we can do that too. But thank you so much for having me. Like, this actually was one of the highlights to my day. To very like I think sometimes when we're all stuck in the home with COVID and we can't have friends over and stuff like that, like we miss the interaction with people. And I've certainly missed, like, even though I have a very active 15-year-old upstairs, he's now gotten into his whole gaming stuff. So normally he would be down, like, bugging me about something, but now he's independent. He fixes his own food, and so when you're
a little more independent than me, I think at 15.
Yeah. So it's like having this interaction with someone else is a welcome relief and a break in the day. So I want to thank you for that as well. So thank you so very much for having me.
You're welcome. And let everyone know where Anacostia and City Boys can be found. Out, or where it will be once it's out.
Right now, Anacostia can be found on YouTube. We are actually moving to a different platform, which I wish that we could talk about, but they told us not to talk about until they release a press release. But we're moving to a different platform that's going to be really, really special. So I can't wait for the owners of it to release the press release. I think sometime in the next couple of weeks. But for right now, you can watch it on YouTube. The city DC is going to be premiering Memorial Day weekend this year on YouTube, and then later on in the year it's going to be moved to Amazon Prime Video.
Nice.
Yeah, so
All right. Thanks for coming on, and for everyone else, PopGlitz Podcast. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, probably a couple other places. And until next time, I will see you all pretty soon.
When